Well, hi everyone. I would like to welcome my colleague Margaret Harris to our chats about the power of DNA and nutrigenomics on health, on medicine. She has a lot to talk about, so welcome. So Margaret is also teaching at the University of Colorado Springs in the nutrition program. Now you're a PhD and you're teaching our future students. Tell us a little bit about your work.
So I have several different classes I'm teaching. Community nutrition for our DPD students, statistics and research methods for our grad students.
Oh, ow.
I'm an epidemiologist by training.
Wow.
And then I'm teaching dietary supplements and herbs, a class for each the undergrads and grads. And now I'm on sabbatical and I'm developing a course on the gut microbiome and health and disease.
Phenomenal. Oh, so you can come back and teach my students then. I know I'm
so passionate about all of these subjects. So
I bet you are. I can see you kind of nipping and tucking all the way around the edges. And then last week I think it was the week before, I was actually speaking to some of the sports nutrition graduate students. They're with Dr. Nana Meyer. So you are, producing some amazing informed future nutrition experts there at the University of Colorado. So well done. It's a great department and it's a great place to work.
It really is.
I'm trying to get back, everyone. I used to live in Boulder, lived in Colorado a couple of times, so I left to live in Wisconsin you're supposed to be 2 years, now it might be 3, but we're trying to get back. So
okay, well, that would be wonderful. I remember when you had those nutrigenomic courses, and I wished I would have gotten to one, but it never worked out when it was held.
Oh, hey, we'll do it again. Nutrigenomics is
that
here
would be
to stay.
fantastic.
Cool. So, Margaret, I remember when you were in one of my courses, we actually brought you in.
Yeah.
You were there anyway, but had you come in because you, throughout the course, were saying, basically, I have a personal experience with this. This is real. This is life. So not only are you teaching, but you have experienced the power of using information from genomic tests in your life. So take us on your journey from why you decided to, pull on that in your own journey.
Well, I first got introduced to it through yourself, and also Joe Veltman had the Genoma company had some webinars for free. They were developing their course.
Yeah.
And I listened to this, and I was at a point in my career where I was feeling really stagnant. Like, I'm just so tired to be in nutrition because It's so controversial. It was a period of time where the high fat food was coming out, coconut oil was getting popular. And here you have all these people still talking about one size fits all and everybody needs to be as low fat as possible. And then the minute I talk about, what about higher fat? Like, I was still getting told by doctors, stop eating all those nuts, you're going to get fat. And I was just like, at that moment, like when he was talking about the omega-3 and the fats gene and, how not everyone can convert and the conversion is slow anyway, it was just like, aha.
It was an aha moment.
I have just gotten re-inspired with nutrition. And I had been going through several things personally with my health. So just a little bit of background, my entire family is ridden with heart disease. There's Alzheimer's, there's cancer, but heart disease is really, basically, as weird as this sounds, everyone has an event when they turn 56. So my grandmother had a series of heart attacks starting at age 56, and then she died at 62. My father had his first heart attack at 56. My uncles, they've all had something, either stents put in or, they've gone to the doctor and they're like, we need to do surgery. And it's all around age 56. And I'm not too far away from there. And so my entire life, I've been just obsessed with cardiovascular disease. And I was one of those people who were like, you know, exercise 3 hours a day, eat as low fat as you can. For a period of time, I was vegetarian, and that was probably the worst time of my life. I was so sick. I was passing out constantly. My hair was falling out. My skin was so dry. I had no energy. I was constantly like filled with stress, and I was constantly sick. And at some point, I couldn't even get pregnant. So we had to go through all these extra things to get pregnant. And after somewhere around the time when I was trying to get pregnant, I just brought back meat back in. And shortly after, like I was still sick a lot. Like anything that would happen, I would get sick. I would get put on antibiotics because I couldn't recover. So then there were like 3 doses. And then I got, let's see, at some point, I got plantar's warts from my children.
I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
That. And this seems so totally off the wall, but I couldn't recover. And for 8 years, it was getting worse, and it was so painful, and I couldn't recover. And also, when I was 26, I got bitten by chiggers. So if anybody has lived in the South, they know what that is. And I was hiking, and I was eating lunch, and all of a sudden, I'm just bitten alive.
Itching.
And by the time I got home, I had such a bad reaction that I was covered from head to toe with all different kinds of rashes. Like the doctors, I had to go to the ER. They made a case study out of me. They basically said they've never seen anything like it because depending on what part of my body, I had a different type of rash pattern.
Wow.
And I feel like that was the point where things really started taking a turn downhill. And all of this is related.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. And so at some point, when I was looking, so somewhere in that 2016 range, I started feeling pain in my breast, and it was getting worse. And it was just the kind of pain, like, you know, when you have a blister and all you can think about is that blister and nothing, like you can't focus on anything but your feet. And so that's what it was like. It was really uncomfortable, and it was getting painful. And I went for my mammogram, and they find concern. And so I start freaking out. I go get a thermogram because I'm thinking a different kind of test might tell me something different. They also find concern. And so then all of a sudden the doctors get on board, and they're going crazy, and I have to get ultrasounds and all these special kind of ultrasounds. And they're like, this is really suspicious. Let's do this again in 3 months. I did it again in 3 months. They're concerned. And they're starting to send me all these letters filled with fear. You know, I don't react well with fear because I buy into it so quickly. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to stop. And it was around this time that I was learning all about nutrigenomics, and I got my test.
So you did a genomic test?
Yes. Yeah. And when I got that test, I think I spent a month in depression because you just see pages and pages and pages of SNPs of cardiovascular disease, diabetes. And I'm thinking, no one in my family has diabetes, but it's cardiovascular diabetes, obesity genes. And I'm just depressed. And here I have the FADS gene. I have the several MTHFR SNPs. And I'm like, this is exactly what I thought. And how am I still alive? Now, granted, I always have eaten very healthy, a lot of fruits and vegetables, always cruciferous vegetables, interestingly enough. And then I meet with Dr. Klein, and she said, well, this can be overwhelming. So we start in the small part, the one that's going to have the most impact right now.
Exactly.
And you need to worry about breast cancer. And I'm like, what? Like breast cancer? Like no one has breast cancer in my family. And this is so off the wall, like all these genes. She's like, no, you have an estrogen metabolism problem. You're overproducing estrogen. You're not detoxing it because your detoxification is slow on phase 1 and phase 2. And then, and then she said, you have a very high risk for breast cancer. So you need to start getting tested for estrogen, your reproductive hormones, and that's what you need to work on. And on top of that, you have a thyroid metabolism issue. So sure enough, I go get tested and I have issues with my thyroid. And so I get put on Natrethroid, and I felt a little better, but that doctor would not test my estrogen levels. Wow. So I eventually found a doctor, and now I'm on a naturopathic doctor because we speak the same language now. But estrogen is quadruple the amount of what it should be.
So you really are, like, your genes are just like in overdrive producing estrogen.
And my progesterone is very, very low. And
so you don't have any balance.
Yes. And then testosterone doesn't even get detected. I mean, it literally says undetectable levels. And so I've been working with this. So I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And around the same time, I went on the grain-free diet, so no sugar, no grain. And because my cholesterol has always been problematic as well, so this is all happening together. And the grain-free diet showed me that my cholesterol won't budge, but my LDL did shift its pattern. So it went from small, dense, oxidized to large and fluffy. And my HDL increased a little bit.
What made you decide to go grain-free? Was that as a result of the thyroid?
It was more a function of the cholesterol level. That's what the doctor recommended.
So kind of reduce your carbohydrates and to stop.
And somewhere around there, so I used to eat a lot of pasta, a lot of grain. and so somewhere around there, what had happened, remember when I told you the story about getting bitten by chiggers? From that moment, I started getting these very itchy hives around my ankles. And they started spreading up to my calves. And it was embarrassing to, walk around in a short skirt or shorts or whatever, because people would say, what is that on your leg? I mean, I looked like a leper. It was disgusting. And it was very, very itchy. Yeah. And around that whole time when I'd had all this testing done, I also went to my to a dermatologist because I needed to I was like, I'm getting tired of all this itchiness and these warts and all of this stuff. Yeah. And she was like, do you have hypothyroidism? And I said, well, I actually just got diagnosed. And she goes, you shouldn't be eating gluten. And I'm like, well, I'd never heard of that, but okay. And I didn't really even take her seriously, but we're talking about 8 years of every 3 to 4 weeks of burning these things off, which is so painful that sometimes I can't even walk.
Yeah.
And then around this time, I went on that grain-free diet. And what happened is I had no more breast pain. I got my mammogram and it was fine. Then I went to get the thermogram, and the thermogram is showing, it was showing a lot of inflammation. Sure. And all of a sudden it's coolness. The thermogram reversed itself. And then all of a sudden, like within a few months, the warts went away. So all of this was really interesting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I figured out, my daughter had a birthday, and then she said, can we have, a pasta dish? And all of a sudden, and this was after I went off that grain-free diet, the itchiness started coming back. The hives came back. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it is gluten. And so when I went on that grain-free diet, it was really telling because I hadn't been eating gluten or anything else. And so all of this stuff all started reversing itself. So that's when I really got earnest and took your class. And so it's been a very long road, and I can't say that it's perfect yet because I still struggle. So my mammograms are totally fine now. No issue with that. No pain. It's been fabulous. No itchiness unless so I did take gluten out, and no itchiness whatsoever unless if I get contaminated. My daughter got diagnosed with celiac. My other daughter got diagnosed with severe gluten sensitivity.
Interesting. Bingo.
We have those genes.
You do.
And so right now I've just completed my second. So I lost like 27 pounds. It was great, but I had surgery not long ago and the weight just came back on. Like literally within 2 weeks, I gained 30 pounds.
So it's like your body is very reactive to insults. So I would imagine you have the genes that really cock you towards inflammation if you can't manage the inflammatory.
My SNPs are on that IL-6 gene.
Okay. Oh, bingo. Okay.
Very prominent.
Very pro. I mean, not everybody is. Most people listening will not know anything about nutrigenomics, but we look at DNA information and we understand how the genes direct kind of biochemical traffic, or in this case, an immune response. And so that we bring in either nutrients or we exclude foods, right, that are contaminating for you, like in your case, gluten. But we can also supercharge the genes with nutrients to turn them off or turn them on, depending on what we're trying to achieve. So you have the IL-6, like pro-cytokine loving gene.
Well, and here's the thing. I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, but with this, I became focused. Like I need to have all my colors. And even that was not enough. So I have to have something to bring down that homocysteine because of the MTHFR gene. So even like I eat vegetables literally 3 times a day. If you look at my plate, how can someone eat breakfast for vegetables, vegetables for breakfast? But I do because I'm very focused on that. And what that I've learned about the different supplement forms. And so I've learned that taking the methylfolate, all I need to do is take a simple multivitamin, which I take a whole food multivitamin, and it's brought my homocysteine levels down to normal. But I have to take the magnesium. I'm very focused now on eating my fish. So 2 to 3 times a week with an omega-3 cap. I'm very focused on taking 2 to 3 Brazil nuts every day to get my selenium. And so, I mean, it sounds so hyper obsessive, but when I look at my blood work, it speaks for itself.
Exactly.
And so now I'm looking into the gut microbiome and I'm realizing why I just got those results back. And I realized why that cholesterol doesn't budge regardless of diet and exercise. And it's because of low bile. And
low what? Repeat that.
Low bile.
Oh,
and so, you know, I'm meeting with my doctor soon, but here's the other thing. So I'm going to get my estrogen tested again in February, but I just had my testosterone tested. And what I had done is I went a little bit more extreme in this last few months because I'm on sabbatical, so I could really take care of myself. And so I've gotten rid of all my Teflon. I've gotten rid of plastic and I'm drinking out of glass. And I knew something had happened because, and I do take supplements. I take DIM and calcium deglutarate because I have fibroids, so I have heavy periods, and that started being dramatically lessened. And so the doctor forgot to test for estrogen, but we did test testosterone and it came up. And it's in normal levels after years and years of getting it tested. And I said, why can't you just give me a hormone? And she goes, no, I want your body to produce it naturally.
And that's just, you know, a sign of a great doctor and your assertiveness too, because the body has innate wisdom. It just does. And what DNA or the genomic testing allows us to look at is exactly as Dr. Klein did. Where do we need to go first to have the greatest impact? Because when our body biochemically gets out of round, or it's like a wheel out of round, it manifests in a number of ways. And traditionally in medicine, we treat the problem, right? Or the symptoms or what have you, but we're not choosing the root cause. Right. So in your case, by going after the estrogen, the hormone rebalancing, the thyroid, that started to put in place, or at least ease out some of the other cycles.
But I'll tell you other things that improved. I always have low vitamin D levels. Well, why wouldn't it be low if my gut was always inflamed? And
And you can't absorb the vitamin.
And I can't get my iron levels up because my periods are too heavy. And so by understanding that estrogen metabolism, and even though I do have to take supplements to give it that extra support, that has actually helped everything. So
Exactly.
my iron levels are normalized now. My vitamin D levels doubled. I mean, I just find it all just pretty amazing
I mean,
and miraculous.
that's why I love talking to you, because your case is a classic example of somebody who presents with all these unrelated symptoms, and you're spinning out of control. And we're trained to, well, let's treat this area, then we're going to treat your hormones. We're not going to look at your thyroid or your gut or whatever. But the DNA information provided direction on where to go first and correct one problem, which starts to correct another.
Yes.
You'd mentioned, it was interesting, I want to go back to the homocysteine. So I know classically in our training, we're taught, okay, elevated homocysteine is a risk factor for heart disease. And it probably still is, right? We look at it differently now. However, if you look at that and your family history, I wonder, with all your relatives had heart disease or heart attacks, whatever, their homocysteine was flying, right?
Well,
Way out of control.
And here's the thing. So I'm like one of the healthiest people in my family because my grandmother was like a second mother to me. So she raised me while my parents worked. And it was so devastating when she died. But I look at the rest of my family and they eat terribly, they smoke, they drink. And I've been purposeful not to do those things, still noticing it still wasn't enough, but I can't imagine those risk factors.
Huge. Yeah, because all you're doing is burdening, like I think a system or wheels that are out around. So, as you know, I like to talk to people about you're driven by your biochemistry, and it's your biochemistry like cogs. Think of cogs or gears, and they have teeth that interlink with each other. If this wheel doesn't turn and its teeth miss with this wheel, guess what? It's spinning and occasionally touching. But nutritionally, you're out of control, and your body thrives on nutrient. I mean, that's the information it uses,
well,
right?
And here is what I'm thinking about. So I think about that month when I got my report and I was so depressed. And when I talk to a lot of people, they're like, that's why I don't want to know. I don't want to know my genes because I don't want to know what's facing me. And I took the approach of, how is it that I have so many awful genes here, but I'm actually, yes, there were things that started going out of control, but how did I get to this point and not feel that before? And it's probably because my diet is so healthy.
Exactly.
And what I love about this, like, okay, there was one thing that opened up my mind, and it was the, food sensitivity issue.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get really upset when you tell them to take away gluten or take away a food, and oh my gosh, you're going to get an eating disorder and all of this, that, and the other. And here it is. This is this one simple little food. I can eat dairy. I can eat everything else. I just can't eat gluten. And that also reversed all of this. It impacted all of this.
Exactly.
And it's just like, what I find is like, nutrition has to be personalized. A one size fits all is not the answer. And I can't tell you how many people ask me like, oh, I'm doing so great on the keto diet. And I'm like, well, that's great for you, but it may not be great for somebody else, you know?
Right. And
like I personally would die if I could buy fruits and vegetables.
Right. Well, what's interesting about gluten, is we don't know if it's a gluten issue or whether it's the glyphosates and everything else that rides along with how we produce gluten-containing products in this country. But for sure, we've modified the wheat strain, right, significantly enough that our body doesn't actually recognize it. And so we're automatically inducing an immune response, which is catastrophic for your immune system and your thyroid. The two are interrelated. So, but I think, listening to your story, and I know what it's like, some of the gene reports, depending on which company is reporting, sometimes they can be like alarming. It's like red, yellow, and green. And all you do is focus on the red. Forget the yellow and the green, which is most of the report. We're like, oh, that's it. I'm doomed. And no, because nutritionally now we know how to look at the reports, prioritize where we're going to go with it, and start working in that area nutritionally. And a lot of times it does, correcting the priority areas infuses and corrects the other areas. And that's the power of, I feel, genomics. It takes the guesswork out of where to look, right? It gives you a very specific lens or road to go down, and you start checking things off. And so it's no longer, let's just do a blood test. We don't, how many people like you? Well, we don't know what's wrong with you. We have never seen this before. Well, I didn't want to be first. You know, I do not want to be the test case, which you were. So.
And, you know, there are some physicians that I work with that are really open, but a lot of the physicians I see are completely not open, you know, like within 5 minutes. Oh, you have a stressful job. We need to give you an antidepressant. Oh, you need a statin because you have heart disease in your family. And I've actually told someone, I said, I've been here less than 3 minutes. And you're giving me this drugs based on what you've read on one sheet of paper without any testing.
Exactly.
That's when I decided I've got to work with someone that understands the issues and is going to be willing to work with me. And what I love about the doctor I have right now, she is not offended that I am asking her questions and even challenging her, like, well, why would you do this? And, you know, we can actually have a conversation. And it's now going to my doctor is not oppressive.
Right. And, you know, I guess you and I also have to defend our doctors too, because you and I know what it takes to learn genomics and nutrigenomics. Yes. It is a complete reboot of our education. And so, as you and I know, we've sat up there late at night learning. And for many of our doctors, it's like, man, they're trying to run a business. So, but slowly, and it's not just doctors, even in our field, dietitians, like, come on, get on board, because this will save trillions of dollars. I mean, really, because we're not prescribing drugs. We're not having people take useless tests.
Well, and here's it. I just finished the gut and biotransformation modules with IFM, the Institute of Functional Medicine.
Yeah.
There were 800 people there, physicians, dietitians, health coaches, nurses. And it was inspiring to be amongst these people that are, you know, having these aha moments too. And so I feel like maybe our job, I remember you posted something on Facebook, and I hear this a lot too about functional medicine. What's that? And you know, there's no data behind that. And then, you know, because case studies aren't considered good data. But I feel like it's our job to connect those of us who know about it, to start publishing on it, to start, even if it is case studies, or even
that's
if
what we're doing,
on studies. Like, it's not going to get out there if we don't tell them the story and the amazing transformations.
Yeah, I think nutrigenomics and genomics is going to, it really is N of one. You know, it's one person at a time, because you can't duplicate a gene blueprint, because we're all unique. The science kind of stays the same. You know, we can apply the same science, but it's different for each person. And, you know, as I always say, it's not about which food or whether you need fruits or vegetables. It's how many you need, or rather I should take it to nutrients. It's not whether you need magnesium, calcium, and zinc. We all need it. It's how much you need for your genes to tick over and work efficiently, or what you may need to uniquely remove because of your unique situation.
And I will tell you one little story that's really fun. So I love teaching my supplements course, because I teach the students about herbs and preparing them from raw herb and the different supplements, and they really love the nutrient aspect. And, you know, I do one simple thing in there, like several simple things where, well, they look at their food record, because in the beginning of the class, they're all like, oh yeah, you can get everything from food. But when they look at their food record, I have maybe met one person who met all their RDAs, except for vitamin D. And so put your money where your mouth is, because when then I give them the challenge, okay, you need to meet those RDAs, they can't. it's like, I'm too obsessed with food, I can't eat enough. A lot of them feel like when they add all this food in, they think better, they have more energy. So they do see these changes, but then they still see, wow, I still didn't get enough. And so these are dietitians and strength coaches going out telling everyone, don't take supplements because you can get everything from food. And the point here is to turn it around, to add more food in, but just really see how you feel and how you're doing. I've had people, like, I give them the zinc taste test, and about half the class, you know, has zinc deficiency based on that test. And that's a pretty good test.
What's the zinc taste test that you do?
Oh, there's a, I can't remember. I have to check the name of the bottle, but it's a bottle of zinc. And then you just take a little teaspoon. And if you taste metal, that means you're zinc replete. And if you don't taste it, that means you're not replete. And all of my athletes don't taste anything.
I bet.
Like, especially the runners.
Yeah.
Because they're so, you know, they exercise so much. I've had a student who eats about 500 milligrams of vitamin C. She told me she went to her doctor, she's vitamin C deficient. So, you know, but she works out a tremendous amount. So it's like, this is an aha moment for them as well, because first of all, they realize, where am I deficient? And they're surprised how deficient they are. Some of them fight with me saying, oh, you can get everything out of food for vitamin D. And then they're like surprised they can't. Some of them get tested and realize, oh my gosh, my vitamin D levels were 17.
And they're young. Your students mostly are young, and so they can kind of get away with it. You know, they're not necessarily tapped into exactly how they feel yet, their innate wisdom. And yeah, they're buying into, well, you get everything through food, but then they're not cognizant yet of the collision course we're on in our 21st century. You know, we live with a lot of demands on our genes, and we're just older that we've had the demands. It's starting to show.
For students, they're so stressed out. Yeah. And, you know, I know that people have all these different names for this generation, but they don't realize, okay, when I was in school, we took about 4 classes. That was, you know, 16 credits.
Yeah.
12 credits. Now these students are taking 5 classes. Yeah. And some of them are very heavy in sciences, so they require a little bit more. They're also working.
Yeah.
A lot of them have to put themselves through school. And I have students who are doing both those things, and they're married, and they have 3 or 4 kids.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of demand. Like, you're not getting your sleep, even if you try.
Yeah, we live in a tough environment. So we'll kind of come to the end here, but I want to ask you, you know, going back to the university, do you see nutrigenomics being taught? I mean, I know you'll be putting little pieces in there, here and there, but are we going in that direction?
So I think it depends on the person. I meet a lot of resistance, and when I start talking about it, I get the glossed over look. But there is one other faculty who is also excited, and so she infuses it in her classes. Good. I infuse it in my classes. I've had a few students who have left and got trained in functional medicine, or they've opened their businesses and they come back and they talk about, this has been amazing for my business, for my practice, because people are coming to me because they can't get help anywhere else, and I give them something different.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's moving, the ticker is moving just slightly, but it really takes people knowledgeable to promote it. Like, I'm an active promoter of it, but not everybody. Like, some people just want to keep it to themselves because they don't want to be out there and they don't want to be different. And I don't care anymore. I'm like, the normal human mentality is, if it's something different, we're going to be afraid of it. And
so
the more you talk about it, the less different it's going to be, and people are going to start paying attention.
Yeah. Well, you are just like you're a pioneer out here. You use yourself as a case study as to this is why. And I think that's how we grow interest, you know, in the field, whether you're on the academic side, you're a scientist, you're a clinician, or, you know, you're a member of the public saying, why can't I get well? Well, we finally feel that genomics is, one of our colleagues said it's the best signpost in a clinician's toolbox. It doesn't give you a diagnosis and it doesn't tell you, okay, we can heal you, but it tells us clinically where to look to provide, direction and to help people find relief, just like yourself.
Well, and I want to reinforce, because you talk about this a lot, but I don't think a lot of people pay attention, is your genes can be saying one thing, but go test for it to see if it's actually happening. Because that is when you treat based on that. And I do see a lot of people, oh, they got a genetic report. Oh, they got MTHFR. Oh, we got to have all these B vitamins. Oh, but now I'm super anxious. You know, and it's like, you gotta test for it.
I think we're just going to do a whole session. In fact, I did with Ashley Kopp, this whole 1 hour of what is MTHFR, and it is just one tiny piece in a huge toolbox. So we a lot of times just kind of bypass that and look at everything else. But yeah. Well, anyway, your story is always, I love to hear it. You're just like such a flag bearer and somebody who's out there saying, you know, this made a huge difference in my life. Jump on board or find someone who can help you. So I want to thank you so much.
Nutrition because of my grandmother.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have the same fate as her. And I don't know, maybe that fate is there eventually because we all have to die of something. But by God, it's not going to be at age 56.
You're gonna make it and be like waving the flag at 86, my friend. Hey, thank you so much. It was just great talking to you.
And thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.